Hey, Rick Williams, how are you feeling?
Better than I was, but not great still.
I took to heart your comments about how this particular COVID really knocked you for a loop.
Yeah, Saturday was a tough day. Felt pretty bad.
Now I'm concerned that I sat next to you the other day.
Well, it's been over a week, so I think you're okay. Could be
All
wrong.
right. Yeah, you never know. You
I have
never.
no idea where I got it still.
So how long you said Saturday? This is now Thursday.
Yeah, I'm about 85% right now.
Boy. Well, sorry to hear you got it.
Well, thank you.
What else is new? Anything exciting?
No, just enjoying my little vacation here at home for the week.
Oh, I'm sure you're excited about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a car getting picked up. So I
Which
couldn't
one?
go.
Your T-Bird?
No, my Tesla,
Uh-oh. What's going on with that?
and it's going away.
You sold it?
No, I gave it away.
Oh, you gave it away.
Gave it to gave it to our son in Portland.
Oh, that's it's shipping it out there.
Yep, yep, it's going
You
out.
gonna get another one? You gonna get something else?
Now I bought a Lucid.
Oh, you did, huh? How do you like it?
So far, I love it. It's actually in many respects superior to the Tesla.
Really? Wow. They look nice.
Yeah, and people have told me I really look good in it.
Well, I think that would go for any vehicle, Vern. Man, of your stunning good looks.
Oh, I agree. I was really concerned about that.
What model did you get?
They call it the Lucid Air. It's
Oh
not
yeah.
not their high end model, but it's the model that has dual motors. They actually have a lower end model with just rear wheel drive.
But this is all-wheel drive, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, all wheel drive. Yeah, my first Tesla just had rear wheel drive, and it was fine, but it didn't handle snow that as it didn't handle ice well. Handled snow
Yeah.
fine, didn't handle ice well. So
Did you test drive it, or is this one of those things you buy it and they ship it to you?
no, I really shopped around looking at all the high end electric cars. I was just about ready to buy a Cadillac. Then I took the Lucid for a test drive, and it was the Cadillac. I thought, because a friend of mine had one, and I would drive his car. Um, it had a lot of good features, but when I went and took the Lucid for a test drive, it just was, as I say, superior to the Tesla.
Hmm. It's a
I
good
can
looking
hear you guys
car.
online formulating your plans.
All right, talk to you later.
See ya.
Okay, I think everybody's here. The time being 9:02 a.m. on August 22nd, 2024. I'd like to call this meeting to order of Kane County's Public Service Committee. Clerk, please call the roll.
Comes. Comes here. Lewis.
Who's here?
Sturgis. Tepe.
Tepe online.
Williams.
Williams present remote.
Here.
Sanchez,
Is present. And I do have some remote attendance requests from Surges, Tepe, and Williams. Any objections to those three? Hearing none, then they are approved for participation in our meeting today. Approval of the minutes, July 18th, 2024. Somebody like to make a motion of some type?
Gums, I would like to make unanimous request to approve the minutes from July 18, 2024.
Gums asked for unanimous consent to approve the minutes. Any objection? Hearing none, the minutes are approved. Public comment on agenda and non-agenda items. I don't have anyone signed up that's online, nobody in person, so we will move on. Finance report, it's on file as always. You know where to go if you have any questions. The same for the recorder's report. Treasurer collector, Mr. Lawson.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee and guests. So on the collection side of our work, folks are coming in to pay. I just received a report before I came in here that on the second installment, only about 22% of the people have actually come in so far. And it's the deadline is the 3rd. And you just think, what are the next 10 days going to be like? So if it's a little unusual over in this corner of the building, please forgive us. But I'm constantly, every day, I'm just amazed by our staff members treating taxpayers respectfully and cheerfully and taking care of issues. The only thought that I wanted to share with the committee this morning very briefly is, and I don't know what to do about it yet, but that's our job to figure out what we do. The mail system is creating a type of chaos with our bills. This sheet here, we mailed this on December 15th of 2022. So 2022, what is that? That's almost 2 years ago. And it showed up in our neighborhood. One of our neighbors got it on July 15th of 2024. So December of 2022. So a whole year of 23, and then half a year of 24. And then it arrives correspondence. But it did show up. And so you say, well, a machine ate it, but no. And then these are just a whole bunch of examples of those kinds of problems with postal system. And I'll sit down with who's ever in charge of the postal system. But my experience with that has been that, well, that you'll have to talk to, 13 other people. But you think all of us rely so much on the mail system. You say, what are you going to do? And so any ideas that anybody from the committee, any guests have, I'm all ears. You say, well, do it through emails, but you know how often people change emails, and you know that there's a whole host of additional problems. And anytime you open up another channel of communication, now you got twice as many kinds of issues. But anyway, wanted to share that little thought. It's our job to solve it. More to come later. So thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
Sounds like you need a budget for hand delivery. That's what I'm hearing. So
That'll do. Yeah.
I don't know.
I won't
Think of it, sir.
request it.
Any questions or comments for the treasurer's office? Ms. Lewis?
I just have a quick question. Are we seeing a lot more people that are paying their bills online now that it's kind of become the standard?
That had been my hope, and that is our ambition, aspiration. Not as large a difference at this point, but that's our focus. One of the priorities is to go out to more functions, like we were over at the National Night Out the other night, and just one at a time, talk with people about, you avoid lines, you avoid any problems with the mail, do it online. And it really is streamlined. I joke on our website that if I can do it, and Anita, my background on computers, I've always had great people like Roger and his team to help me. If I can do it, anybody can do it. So.
Mr. Chair Gums.
Ms. Gums?
Just a thought, and I'm speaking from ignorance here, but are we, can we highlight this on social media? And then use our PIO for like to push it out there.
Very much to her credit, our PIO has made overture. She made a call several months ago to offer to do some promotion along those lines. Great idea. And I do have it written down for a follow-up.
Okay.
Right now, we go through those next 10 days and just pray that nothing kind of goes like elections. You know, they're smooth as silk.
Anything else for the treasurer? All right, thank you, Mr. Lawson. Next up, Supervisor of Assessments, Mr. Armstrong.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My report begins on page 57. As usual, there are some updates since the report was generated on August 6th. Under Campton Township, you can write in that their final equalization factor was 1.1185. Final filing date September 30th. Caneville, final equalization factor 1.0734. Final filing date September 30th. The rest of the report is written if you have questions. Referring to the treasurer's mail comments, we too are in the midst of an analysis of mail patterns. It was started by a lawsuit in Will County, Jackson Generation versus Will County, that was decided by the 3rd District back in May. And it had to deal with mailed assessment notices and what was required. And so we started analyzing the mail because we get a lot of return mail. As you might imagine, when we have nearly 200,000 parcels, getting some wrong addresses coming back can be an issue. So I've started doing an analysis of this, wondering why are these addresses coming back? I've seen some of the same issues. Some come back within a couple of days. Some come back 8 weeks later. No seeming pattern why. We always look at the reason that's on there. And then we look at 4 things. Number 1 is, what was the address on the deed? Which, according to Jackson Generation, that's the best place to mail that address unless you've been given written instructions to mail it somewhere else. So if it matches that, then can we find the address in the USPS database? And if that matches, then can we simply look on Google Street View and see that, yeah, that is a real place. And what we're finding is about 80% of the time, all those factors are met. And yet the assessment notice came back. Now, we're not through a full year of that. As of this morning, we've gotten 135 back this year. Very rarely can we figure out any reason that it's gone on. Sometimes when we can figure out the reason, it's a simple one. Forwarding order expired. Somebody has a property that does not have a house on it. They have the tax bill, like a farm property. They have the tax bill sent somewhere else. They now move. They don't tell us until the county board decides to budget me for psychic training so I can figure out where those people have moved to. I don't have any guesses as sometimes to where they move. Oddly enough, we didn't check, did they pay the first installment? So far, in every case, yes. So they're paying the bill, but those notices bounce back for reasons that we can't determine. Now, once I'm through a full year, I want to develop a full report of what the findings were, and then we'll see what happens. But a lot of times we can't figure out a good reason. Now, I can find one reason where it came back where I really had an issue. And this a couple of years ago, I had a call from somebody in one, I won't mention the name of the suburb because it's going to be the mention of the post office. But this person says, I didn't get the notice, therefore I don't owe my taxes. And I'm thinking, yeah, I know it doesn't work that way. But I sent him a letter explaining all these things. Well, then the letter I sent him came back undeliverable as addressed. That's all it said. Well, I drive out to the house. There's a mailbox there. There's a house. Everything looks in order. So I drove to the post office and got the postmaster. And the postmaster said, yeah, this is one of those guys who signed up for, who came in and said he is declining all mail delivery for the future. We think it's because he heard somewhere that if the bill doesn't reach him, he doesn't have to pay. which that's also really not true. Bad things happen when you just decide to not pay your tax bill or other bills, just different bad things happen. But those are the variety of things that we're running into when we really dig into these addresses. But so the experience that the treasurer is having is not unique. And we're trying to figure out how broad it is and how to quantify it, and see if we can figure out what to do about it. By the way, email is an option legally if the property owner and the county opts in to emailing. You can set up a system under Illinois law. That's a recent amendment within the last 5 years. So I was at a conference in Boston a couple of years ago, and I went to an exhibit on dealing with that very topic. And there was a vendor that specialized in that. They would even do it where they would email it. They had to get a bounce back saying had been opened. If they didn't, then they would generate a mail, a standard USPS letter. Thought that was an interesting way of doing it to at least make sure the email goes through. But we asked them what was their buy-in at, say, 5 years. Because we realized the first year, it takes people a way to figure out these things. What kind of penetration to get within 5 years? At 5 years, their best case scenario was 10%. So the question is, how much budget money do we want to spend for something that apparently 90% are not ready to use? And ultimately, that's a policy decision that this board would have to make. I don't know that you're ready to spend any additional money for that kind of buy-in. But if you ever do have extra money lying around and you'd like to try some experiments, we can find a place for that. So let me know if there's extra budget money laying around at the end of the whole process. And yes, that was me being ironic.
Mr. Roth.
I didn't find.
Mr. Roth.
Yeah.
Good.
I
Mr.
have
Roth
no
has
extra-
money.
I have no extra money, but have we ever considered centralizing? Because like you're doing address changes, the treasury is, I'm sure the county clerk.
Actually,
is.
it's already centralized for the
Okay.
property tax cycle for that very reason.
Right,
While statutorily, both of us have to keep address lists.
right.
The old adage that a person with one watch knows what time it is, but a person with two watches is never sure.
Right.
So while we will collect them both in our offices, they all go to my office because the notices will get sent there first in the tax cycle. So we do all centralize that. What we can't do is centralize things like voter things. The election laws have their own set of laws of
No,
what they
and-
have to
Yeah,
do.
Of course.
And those don't meet ours at all, and we recognize that. So
Okay.
we do centralize them all, I think, as best we can. But it's a great question because I don't think that was obvious for anything that we were saying.
Right, right. And, I was involved in mail merges eons ago. I used to work for Sears Catalog, actually. And I know there used to be where there's lists that when people move actually get generated and you obtain those so you could be aware of them.
The problem is we're not allowed to use them.
Okay. All right.
The law is super specific on how changes will be.
Okay.
We cannot accept mail changes from third parties. It has to be from the
Okay.
individual.
Yeah, I
itself.
had heard that. Yes, I understand. All right.
Now,
thank you.
if the legislature would like to look at changing the law, that's certainly something we could take a look at. I'm not sure we'd get a large buy-in on that.
Oh, of course
Because the
not.
fact is, unless the post office is going to be monitoring who's filing those, it'd be, even though, yes, it's
There's a chance
illegal,
of fraud. right.
but if you're mad at your neighbor and you want to change their addresses, so everything is mailed to Ken Shepro's PO box, you could do that, but it's something that we do keep these addresses and just address changes so we can go back if there's a question about them.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Shepro.
Oh, he doesn't want them sent to his PO box. I
Not
bet.
PO Box 4102.
We have a very large PO box. If you saw the junk mail I got, you know why. Just to emphasize what I think you said in passing, it is not a defense to not paying your taxes, even if the post office doesn't deliver it. Is that correct?
That is correct. Now, the Jackson Generation versus Will County set out some different rules for assessment notices, but not tax bills. So that's the first time the courts have treated those somewhat differently, which is what led to this analysis. But yes, even if the taxes are assessed in the wrong name, if they are mailed to a different location entirely, they are still due. And the treasurer, for instance, doesn't even have the authority to waive the penalties in that case. As a former state's attorney like to say, the property tax code is a very harsh legal environment in which to operate.
Any other questions or comments for the supervisor of assessments? Okay, thank you, Mr. Armstrong.
You're welcome.
Regional Office of Education, Ms. Del Santo.
Morning, everybody. It's back to school time. So we're going to talk a little bit about what the schools are doing and how back to school is going this year. And Dee's going to start us out.
Good morning, everyone. All schools are now back in session as of today. Our final schools to go back were Geneva and East Aurora. So everyone's back in session, so that's good. Our team from the regional office is very busy representing East Aurora. Our team has been busy trying to make sure that our kids are well equipped with everything they need to start school. Many of our kids on caseload struggle to afford school supplies and hygiene kits. So we've been, just trying to make sure that they have toothbrushes, that they have detergent if they need it, if they have notebooks, whatever they need to get a great start to the school year. So the staff that we have committed to this back to school time, we have 5 youth outreach staff that work almost exclusively with our kids that have attendance related concerns. But as you may know, there's usually other issues related to that as well. We have a truancy intervention specialist, a family counselor, community intervention specialist that work with our alternative schools. We have a coordinator of alternative programs, our McKinney Vento, so our homeless liaison, making sure there's no barriers for our students that are homeless or unaccompanied to start school. And then we just recently hired 2 coaches that work with our with some of our school districts to work on their chronic absenteeism. And so really starting strong with our schools and really reinforcing those interventions that are needed for kids to have a great start and finish. We know that post-COVID, many of our students got kind of out of the routine of going to school every day. And so for example, one school district, U46 has a campaign right now, Every Minute Matters. And so they're working very hard to look at their chronic absenteeism rates and really encouraging families to send their kids to school every day. And then some of the interventions that the ROE has been funding, this started during COVID and it's kind of just continuing through with different funding streams. We fund mental health. We have 25 alternative school sites to create small school environments for our students. We run the truancy referral system, not only for our office, but many offices across the state. And that's just to make sure that, we have a good tracking system on our kids to really look at the interventions that we're implementing, as well as, having that data available for grants. We have many members, including Pat, that serve on our Illinois Coalition for Educating At-Risk Youth, which is for short ICERI. And if you say that too close to your phone, sometimes it sets Siri off. So if I apologize if that happened. Really trying to lead some of the reforms across the state on all things related to absenteeism and then programs for at-risk youth. We are also funding pro-social activities. One of the things that we know is that if kids are more connected to their community, they're more likely to attend school. And so we're looking at some of these different avenues, like we've paid for karate, horseback riding lessons, you name it. If a student wanted that and we felt like it would also encourage attendance, we would help to either get them there or fund those programs. Our Institute Day again will be held in late February, and that is completely SEL focused. So really trying to create environments that are positive for our students in the school. You will start to see in Kane County Connects each month an article related to all things school-based, whether it's truancy, chronic absenteeism, anything that we can do to encourage and draw attention to having kids in school every day. And I think, did I miss anything, Pat? Okay,
You did a great job. So
Thank
we're
you.
very busy.
any questions?
Any questions for the Regional Office of Education?
Oh, and SEL, in case you don't know what SEL is social emotional learning. Sometimes we get stuck in our abbreviations. We don't spell it out, but that's social emotional learning.
Everybody's got their own dictionary of acronyms.
Yes, absolutely.
Ms.
Deborah, and then Ms. Combs.
There's been there's been news in the press about the mothers in 304 in Geneva that have asked for a cell phone ban. Do you know where that might be going? And is this something that does your office have an opinion on that issue? And
A number of our districts are piloting different types of programs. That seems to be making national news these days, the cell phone bans in school. Some of our schools are trying voluntary bans where kids are turning their phones in during class and putting them in sleeves. Others are banning them completely. The research is still out there. We don't have anything really conclusive. There is some that's showing that students that do not have their cell phones during the day are reporting that they're happier by the end of the day without their cell phones. And the schools that are having the voluntary put my phone away, those kids are saying they're able to focus much more on what's going on in class. They're keeping themselves out of the drama of what happens on their cell phones during the day. So I see it as a positive trend, and we'll see how it develops.
thank you.
Ms. Gomes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I actually have a couple of asks for your team. As the Chair of Legislative, currently we're working on our plan for our legislative agenda. And if you would be able to identify some important priorities and then shoot me an email so we can put them on our official agenda that we'll eventually vote on in the next few months.
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. Our at-risk statewide group, which is ICRA, and if your phones go off, I'm sorry. We meet as a board on September 5th, so I'll have more information for you after that. And the regional superintendents meet mid-September, and I'll have more information for you on what their legislative agenda is.
Very good. Thank you very
Mhm.
much.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you both.
Wait, I have a
Ms.
comment.
Lewis.
So to follow up to what Mr. Shepro said, East Aurora, who did start school yesterday, yay. They implemented this year where when the kids walk in the classroom, they have lockers on the wall and they have to put their cell phones in the locker during class periods. And then when they leave, they take them out and they're allowed to have them during passing period and at lunch. And yesterday there was like nobody throwing violent fits. There was no deans and PPAs called to wrestle kids to the ground. And every parent that I have talked to loves it, and teachers too. So I think that that's kind of a good compromise to start. So maybe they'll, think about something like that in Geneva. Just a comment.
I think surprisingly, the pushback is coming more from parents rather than the students themselves, in that, well, what if they need to get a hold of me? What if I need to get a hold of them? Well, we managed that back in the dark ages before we had our cell phones. So I think we can manage that issue, but that more pushbacks coming from the parents rather than the students.
And I have one other quick thing. I want to shout out to the people at the Regional Board of Education that went and did summer programming at the Juvenile Justice Center. They just went and interacted so well. And the youth there just was so appreciative. They brought in like program kind of stuff. It's really cool. So thank you to your group for doing that.
Anything else from the committee or others? Thank you both for being here today. Next up, Veterans Assistance Commission, Mr. Zimmerman.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. While I had intended on being brief this morning, I don't want to pass on the opportunity to discuss the postal system in our office as well. Shortly before I got into this business, we didn't have much problem with getting the applications from point A to point B necessarily, but the VA's Office of Inspector General raided 4 of the VA's regional offices and caught VA employees shredding new applications as they came in the door. So it wasn't necessarily the postal system that was causing the issue there. But because of that, we had always been very we took a lot of care to make sure our applications made it to where they needed to go, and we had proof of that. So 10 years ago, we would be filing all of our applications by paper mail, certified mail, priority mail to make sure that it got there. And now it's all digitally uploaded by us with instant confirmation that they got it, and then confirmation when they're processing it. So we're saving thousands of dollars and not having to do it that way anymore. And showing when an application gets into the VA is very important. We had a case where a veteran came into us earlier this year. He had filed on his own an application in 2010. Luckily, the VA didn't shred it, but they didn't process it. They just put it into his file. So when we were helping him with the new paperwork, we discovered that previous paperwork in his file that was there, notified the VA that there was an unadjudicated claim, and he was awarded over $324,000 in back pay to 2010 for that. So being able to show that our applications make it to where they're supposed to go and have that paperwork is very important. So with that, my monthly report for the month of June, our disability claims are being processed about 22 days on average faster than the average Illinois veteran, and our pension claims about 52 days faster. We have 413 claims pending total for Kane County and brought in over $847,000 in new benefits in the month of June. I sound like a broken record, but that's more than our budget for the entire fiscal year. So we're really happy about that. So be happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Veterans Assistance Commission?
Mr. Chair Gums.
Ms. Gums.
I might sound like a broken record here, but since we're working on our legislative agenda for the county, perhaps you and I can sit down, or you can send me an email with some of the what I'm looking for, and this is for everybody here, is kind of a generic overview of what we oppose and support. And then when we get into the bills themselves, we would ask you to review those and then direct them to us so we can vote whether we're going to support or oppose a particular bill. I know there's a lot of bills that you are looking at and dealing with. They're overwhelming, but I would like that as well. So
Be happy to.
thank you.
Mr. Chair, Surges,
Sir, just go ahead.
if I could ask Ms. Gums, when we say we would be willing to support or refute, who is we in that conversation?
If I might answer, Mr. Chair.
You're the best.
The we would be Kane County. So how it works, just really short. So we'll come up with a legislative agenda. We'll put it together, which is happening right now. And then that'll go forward to the full board for vote. So it just like everything else, it would be a we Kane County board support, and it'll be done by vote. So
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Anything else? Okay, thank you, Mr. Zimmerman.
Thank you.
County Clerk, Mr. Pollock.
Good morning. I just want to say for the record that it's not that I didn't pay my tax bills for the last 10 years. They're just in the mail right now. They'll get there. Well, I didn't get it. Doesn't work. So gotta try something else. You have our monthly reports. Want to point out a few things. As of July, we're over $1 million in money that we have sent back to the general fund in terms of revenue. So we're always happy to be a revenue generator for the county. We're ahead of last year. So it looks like we'll probably beat our estimate. So meaning that by the end of the year, we should have some money to return back to the general fund. The big driver, we're on the broken record theme, passports. People are loving to travel and people are loving to come to our office to get their passports and their pictures taken. This year so far in the first 7 months, we've broken the record 5 times already in terms of monthly highs. This is coming off of the records we broke in 22 and 23. So we'll probably be ahead of the schedule from we're already ahead of pace from last year. We'll probably top the 2023 number in the next like 2 or 3 months. So keep them coming. It's Our office likes to do it, and it's a great way of returning revenue back to the county and saving taxpayer dollars. So that's that. I don't really want to get in the conversation of mail, since everyone else has. As Mr. Armstrong said, the laws on election mail are even more complicated. One thing I'll say is if there is mail that comes, whether it's your voter registration card, I will mention the mailer that we sent out in a second, but any of those things that we sent out first class, if there's someone in your house that was on the voter registration rolls that doesn't live there anymore, like your kid went to college, moved out, whatever, please return that to us and say that the person doesn't live there. I mean, we go through our process. We follow state and federal law on this. And like I said, I'm not going to go into the weeds, but it helps if constituents send that back when the person isn't there anymore, instead of saying, oh, I don't know why you sent this to me. The person doesn't live here anymore. So you can help us and let your constituents know that when we send we do press releases when we do our annual voter registration mailer, but if that's there, let people know, especially for you when you're going door to door and you get to a house and they say, well, this person lived here in 20 years. Well, how do we know if you don't tell us? We know when they pass. If they pass in Kane County, we know if they move somewhere else, but that helps us. So anyway, elections. This is the time of year when there's 3 elections going on. About the big one in November, but the cycle for the consolidated election has already begun. While we only accept filings for school board races, which will come in November, the consolidated primary cycle has begun. Not every jurisdiction will have a consolidated election, but we will be running an election on February 25th because we are aware of at least one township that's having a partisan primary, and we'll know for sure in October when filings happen, but there are certain jurisdictions where more than 5 candidates will run, triggering a primary. So in our budget, we let you guys know that there'll be a primary, and there will be. So we're getting ready for that. And then the consolidated April primary or consolidated election on April 1st, that your school boards, your library boards, municipalities, that obviously will go. And the circulation period for that started on Tuesday. Like briefly mentioned, I think last month, the state legislature passed a law to move up the filing period, which also meant the circulation period moved up. Normally, you'd file sometime around November-ish for the primary and December for the consolidated. Everything's moved up 28 days. Similarly, next year for the 28 cycle or 26 cycle, it'll be the same thing. If you're on the ballot in 26, the March primary, normally you'd start circulating petitions around Labor Day and file around Thanksgiving. It's going to be moved up. So the circulation is going to start late July or early August and then end in October instead of November. Obviously, we'll discuss that when we get closer, but just letting you know, all of these deadlines have shifted. So that's why we get to deal with this now. So it's not like we have enough going on with the general election. In terms of that, we mailed out a letter to 280,000 registered voters. Basically, everyone other than the people who have already been on the permanent vote by mail list and who have sent us notice that they don't want to be on that list. State law mandates that we mail out a letter indicating to those registered voters that they have the option of permanent vote by mail status and include an application. It's not mandatory that anyone requests permanent vote by mail status. The law just mandates that we send out the letter to inform the voters. So if you or any of your constituents are interested in selecting the permanent vote by mail status, fill out the form, send it back. They're on. We have a paper copy with their wet signature, so it's attached to their voter registration file. But nothing is mandated. You still can vote early. You still can vote on election day. You can vote however you wish. In that envelope, we also included some information about how to serve as an election judge, trying to recruit more judges, information about the voting machines for people that did not vote in the primary. And then there was a 1-page little flyer that talked about early voting, vote by mail, and election day voting. So hopefully people keep that. There are QR codes on there. So if you have questions about where you vote, when you vote, how you vote, everything is there. Let's see what else. We started election judge training because the election will soon be upon us. Early vote, I'll talk more about it next month, but early voting starts on September 26th. So the first day of election day is September 26th. Let's see what else. We've done some demos of our voting equipment. We did one this week at the Town and Country Library in Elburn. We have a few more scheduled in September. September 17th will be in Elgin in the morning and Aurora in the evening. It's also National Voter Registration Day, so voter registrars will be at those events to encourage people to register to vote and see the new equipment. If you are interested in having us demo the equipment at a community group in your area or something, please let us know. It's going to get a little bit harder as we start early voting and we get a little thinner. So if you have something in the next month or so, please let us know and we'll see if we can accommodate. I think that's it for now.
I have a question.
Questions for the clerk's office, Mr. Shepro?
I really can't let you escape without commenting about mail, so I will say one, I did receive the mail at my post office box, but not recently, but in the past, in my village, almost everybody gets their mail at a post office box and not at their street address. And I understood that you are not allowed to send, for example, voter registration cards to at one time at least, to a post office box. And we had trouble maybe 12 years ago where there were new voter registration cards. And of course, they all came back because our post office wouldn't deliver them. Even if they were addressed to a street address, they would go to the post office and the post office wouldn't do it because you had post office boxes. Is that still a problem potentially?
I don't know the intricacies of that. I can find out and let you know.
And on the issue of election judges, I had a conversation with the clerk the other day and was led to believe that there are still significant need for election judges.
We always can use election judges. Yes. And even when we're fully staffed, it's always good to have some backup.
Any other
Everyone's
questions?
having the problems.
Any other questions, comments? Mr. Young?
Parties are supposed to do it.
Yep, David Young. For the, on page 18, I was looking through this packet. And so on page 18, it lists the, just the general, I guess, ledger for the clerk's office. So 190 clerk, and it lists the general fund and it has several different funds. Are these the only accounts that are being represented when you show this ledger? Are there any other accounts not shown that aren't shown here on this page? Does that make sense? So I know that account, or I'm starting to learn that as we have going through the budget process, that there are different, I'm going to call them checking accounts, just for a generic term, accounts with each individual department. So here, this lists the general fund, it lists the vital records automation, 160, and it lists 161 election equipment fund. Are there any other funds that aren't listed on this ledger on page 18?
This should be everything, right?
I don't finance puts those together. I don't know. I mean,
Okay.
those look like they're those are revenue funds in the general fund. There's a general fund, elections, I think has a different line number than those are elections too.
Mr. Young, are you trying to determine how much cash on hand they have?
Yeah, so that goes, I just wanted to know if I was missing something, because that goes to my question is that, last year, the U.S. Alliance of Election, the CTCL, had provided a $2 million grant to the clerk's office. And you can see in this line item, it says underneath general fund, it lists grants, and then it says 32745 Tech and Civic Life Grant.
And then it also lists that same thing underneath revenue under 161 election equipment fund. But I don't see anywhere on 2023 where $2 million was, I don't see that underneath the Tech and Civic Life Grant. So I was just curious if that was just underneath a different fund. Because that, obviously that was received. So that was my question.
So
Where is that money?
What revenue line item would that have gone under?
Right, right.
Is
Would
that-
you,
So you don't know offhand, Mr.
No,
Powell?
I believe that I don't do New World, but the way I've understood things is money doesn't show up until it's spent. And so if it's, I think there's something on the finance report that still says that the money has been unspent because it hasn't been spent. So it's not going to show up as, and maybe the treasurer's office, I don't know if you know that, but I know it's receiving interest and it hasn't been spent. So I don't think it's going to show up on the report until it's been spent.
okay. Would that be a finance question, I guess? Would that be, I mean, I could ask finance for that.
It would be more finance, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Pollock, Mr. Young. Just because the double entry system, when the money's received, it's, debit, cash, credit, revenue. Maybe it's a capital line. And when it's spent, as you're referring to, it would be a, debit to that expense and credit cash. So it is entered twice, once when it's received and then a second time when it's spent. It would seem to me, but whoever said, well, that's a question for finance, is right.
Okay. All right. And then if I may continue, the same thinking is that where is that money going to be spent? Do you have any idea that in the grant, there's a contract that was written between the clerk's office and the U.S. Alliance of Elections. It said that it has to be spent on election equipment and also for charitable or educational purposes, but it needs to be expended by the end of the year. Do you have any idea on where that's going to be spent? We're getting close to the end of the year.
Those determinations are made by the clerk. If you have questions, feel free to talk to Jack.
All right, I'll give him a call. I did send him an email actually last night about that. So, one more thing, there is a lot of questions about all of the, illegal aliens coming into our county. And I just want to know with certainty, if you know with certainty that not a single illegal alien is registered to vote in Kane County, and how would you know that? And verify that.
If you have questions, I'd suggest you come over to the office and the clerk can explain to you our voter registration process and how things work, and you can see it. And I think you'll get a better answer that way.
Okay, so you don't know.
I saying the same thing that I say each time. If you have a question like that, we've invited you to come to the office. I would recommend that you come over, and I think a lot of your questions will be answered that way. Most of the other board members have done that. So we invite you to come.
Mr. Chair Gums.
Ms. Gums?
I think just getting to the point, there are like numerous stop gaps to address that. We've had those in place for quite a long time. And as far as the question, I'm not familiar with anyone slipping through those stop gaps to date. And I would hope that would continue, but I think to Mr. Young's point, I would like to think that we would catch those, but also understand that no system is 100% perfect, but I think we're doing good so far.
Yeah, to my knowledge, there's always going to be some instances of vote fraud, but the numbers are so small, they're not even statistically insignificant. They're just, nothing that could sway an election. Even with non-residents getting driver's licenses, whereas a citizen gets a driver's license, you're automatically enrolled to, to vote. Yeah, that's not the case for non-residents that get driver's license. They don't get that option to register to vote automatically or otherwise. So I know there are certain stopgaps in place, but I think Mr. Cunningham, if he were here, he could answer that question directly, but obviously you can always go see him anytime.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions for the clerk's office? Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Pollock.
Thank you.
Other business, I'm not aware of any that the committee has. No need for executive session. I need a motion of some type to place the reports on file.
Gums will make a request for unanimous consent to place the reports on file.
Okay, Gums asked for unanimous consent to place reports on file. Any objection? Hearing none, reports are on file. I need a motion and a second to adjourn.
Gums will move to
I'll
adjourn.
second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.